Kérem vigyázzanak, az ajtók záródnak.
On the Underground in London, we all know to mind the gap. On the metro in Budapest, or in Moscow for that matter, we pay attention because the doors are closing and the next station will soon be coming up. When Vitaly and I first arrived in Budapest in 2015, we thought we had travelled in a time machine. The carriages on the blue line of the metro were Soviet-era tin cans of a kind we had not seen in modern Moscow for years. The commuters packed themselves into these brutal metal boxes. The famous recorded warning came on in Hungarian, and the doors slammed shut with a bang. It really made you feel as if you were back in the USSR. The other lines had more up-to-date French-made carriages, and a clipped woman's voice told you in English when you had reached the terminus and it was time to say goodbye. But the M3 line continued to have a Russian flavour, even after renovation, with new white carriages supplied by the same old Metro Wagonmash factory from Mytishi. In Budapest, Vitaly was in seventh heaven because he is an avid train spotter and lover of trams. He drools at the sight of rolling stock and can sit for hours watching videos from train drivers' cabins. I must say, for me, his passion is a bit of a mystery. It all goes back to his childhood, when his aunt, Tiotia Lisa, who was a tram driver, let him sit at the controls and drive the trams in his native town of K. She could have been fired, or even perhaps jailed, for letting a child play in this way, but the young Vitaly pestered her mercilessly, standing at the stop and waiting for her cherry red and yellow tram to come clattering along the line. "It breathed," said Vitaly. "What do you mean it breathed?" I said. "It had pneumatic compressors." Oh, God! The yellow trams in Budapest, both the classic old ones and the shiny new ones from Siemens, have nearly the same effect on Vitaly. He stands at the stop and I can see him having little fantasies. Once, when we were living in Australia, he actually applied for a job as a tram driver. Adelaide has a famous tram that goes from the city centre to the beach resort of Glenelg, and they were looking for drivers. Vitaly felt he had missed his vacation. Now was his chance. He filled in the form. "State your experience of driving heavy vehicles," the form said. "Grand piano," wrote Vitaly. He didn't get the job. I couldn't understand his fascination. For me, if a tram meant anything, it perhaps meant predetermination, the impossibility of deviating from the set lines. But for Vitaly, the sweep of the tram along the rails was the most perfect example of legato. You see what I mean? Bonkers. And then there are the trains. Here in Budapest there are so many to spot, from the superfast railjet to the swallows of Mavstart, not to mention the historic steam trains of the Vasútmuseum and the toy trains of the Children's Railway up in the Buda Hills. Vitaly once said that if I married him, we would be walking together along train tracks, and so it has turned out. He takes me along train tracks to pick wild flowers, and even drags me over them, oblivious to the sad little memorials to people who misgauged their shortcuts over the sleepers. Once we were sitting on the platform at Rakos-Rendezer when the České dráhy sped past. Ah, Prague, I sighed. There's some wonderful Gothic architecture there. Yes, said Vitaly, but look at the curve of those rails.
This train terminates here. Goodbye.